Hello and welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire all to age with abundance. As part of our Aging Innovators series, I'm pleased to have Liz Hamburg on the show today. And I got to say, Liz is one of those people that's really comfortable starting new things. She's got over 20 years of experience starting and growing innovative organizations around the world. Many of which place things like volunteerism and positive societal change at its core. Her current project, if I can call it that, Liz, is Candoo, and it's an organization that I've had the pleasure of seeing grow over the last 3 years through the work that United Church Homes has done with the Techstars Future of Longevity program. And Candoo, and I know you'll do a far better job talking about it than I will, Liz, was formed to support really digital equity. Particularly amongst older adults, with remote tech support and training to help foster use of technologies that will help people stay healthier, more independent, and connected. So, Liz, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here and great to talk about what's happened at Candoo Tech and how we've evolved since you and I first met, as you said, now just about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and really, I think the overarching theme of this podcast is dispelling myths. I mean, there's a lot of myths about older adults and their use of technology, and I think that you've definitely got a ton of perspective on that. Quick plug on our side, by the way, I do want to remind everybody of our Ruth Frost Parker symposium that happens in October of every single year. The Ruth Frost Parker Center is the part of United Church Homes that really is our advocacy and thought leadership work, particularly around ending ageism and ageist beliefs. That's the subject of our 2023 symposium. It'll be happening in October. And please find out more information about attending either in person or virtually at unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. All right, all that business is out of the way. Liz, let's just start off with this. I mean, you've got an amazing history of entrepreneurism, which I can't pronounce. You've got, you could be doing a lot of things, obviously, with your talents. What really brought you into this world around technology training for older adults?
Yeah, well, like so many people who've come into this space, mine was a very personal journey, and I was inspired to start Candoo Tech by my dad. And, I know so many of us in this industry have said it's happened because of a parent or a loved one, a grandparent. For me, my father literally lived next door to Best Buy. And he was like the first guy in line for every gadget you can imagine. And he never knew how anything worked. So, he was a lawyer by training. He became a photographer, very, very smart man. But he was constantly calling Geek Squad or, going to the Apple store. And, and he needed that help. And so one day he actually bought me my first Alexa, and he bought himself an Alexa. And one day he left me a voicemail where I still have it. It's actually on our website now. I managed to think to save it all those years before. And he said, Alexia has gone out of town. He called her Alexia. And he's like, I don't know where she is. I don't know what to do. Maybe she's on vacation. Like, I've tried her 3 times. Call me back. And so he was kind of joking, but he really wasn't joking because he really needed Alexa for something. He really couldn't get hold of her. And he wasn't going to, call Geek Squad to have someone come over. And so that was really what got my brain thinking. As you'd mentioned in the intro, I've been an entrepreneur for many, many years. And I was thinking about, what's my next business? And the light bulb kind of went off for me to say, there's got to be a better way. Because as he got older and, he passed away a few years ago now at almost 90, but he had, macular degeneration in the end. He had some cognitive issues. He had some mobility issues and was very hard of hearing and wore hearing aids. And so the traditional support wasn't cutting it for him. And as I started looking at how we were improving his experience, he managed to stay at home and age in place, with my mother there and some aides. But we were putting podcasts on. We were, connecting his hearing aids to his phone. He was listening to audiobooks as his, macular got bad and he couldn't read. We were adjusting screen contrast so that it was, black screen and white font. And so I started thinking about these ways that we were improving his life, improving his family and his caregivers' lives, and really looking at the gaps out there for support. And we started off as, we're Geek Squad for seniors, kind of that help when you need help. But what quickly evolved as we started, like literally right before the pandemic, was that people needed training. And, you mentioned digital literacy. They needed that digital literacy training as much, if not more, than the support. And so that's what's really evolved for us as a combination of helping older adults learn how to use their technology and at the same time fixing what's not working.
Yeah, and I got to say, first of all, I like to say to people, if you ever want to understand older adults and their relationship with technology, go to your local Best Buy and stand by the Geek Squad counter for a couple of hours, and you'll see a lot of that come to life. And it sounds like with Candoo, with taking this online, with the model that you had, especially during the pandemic, it was kind of good timing for that, right?
Yeah, definitely. We started off in person in New York. I'm based in New York, and so we were going to launch in New York and then expand to other markets. And so a few months after we launched, the pandemic hit, and we quickly obviously shut down all of our in person. I was quite worried about what was going to happen, but we actually, in some ways, it really helped us scale because we ended up moving to a remote only model. Today we offer a combination of one-on-one remote training and support with tech concierges, all US based, all over the country. We also offer group lessons. So that's become a fun activity and a way to teach people as well as, keep them engaged. And then we have a growing library of on-demand content. So that, for people who want to sort of self-drive through, that library is available with hundreds of how-to guides, videos, and, for people who need those quick reminders, they can do that because we found that not everyone, learns in the same way. And so they need to learn at their own pace. But definitely being able to be virtual and all over the country now has really helped us scale.
And I got to say, when you look at just society and how it kind of, layers technology against older people. I mean, the things that I generally, we generally see are, the befuddled, older person trying to use the Alexa. I remember actually Saturday Night Live. People keep sending this to me, the Saturday Night Live Alexa Silver clip, which is actually kind of funny. And it's either the befuddled or it's kind of like these, oh, I'm wearing a VR headset. Oh my gosh, look, I'm living in the future with flying cars. And it just seems like, the technology industry. I mean, with the age wave, with everything going on right now. I mean, let me ask you this. What sort of misnomers do you see out there when it comes to older people? Let's say over the age of 75 and their ability to acclimate and use new technology.
Well, first of all, I would say it's not a one size fits all. We have people that are incredibly sophisticated, former professors of technology, and they're great, and they just need to learn how to use some new app or download something new. But we also work with people who are terrified of their technology, very smart, very sophisticated, accomplished people who have a real visceral reaction. They've said, my heart starts beating, my hands are shaking. And I don't know if you saw, there was a Pew Research study that came out several years ago now that said almost 75% of older adults are frustrated by and afraid of their technology and very often need someone help them set it up and show them how to use it. But the good news is that if you do set it up and show them how to use it, then they're off to the races. And so we have really seen that with the right training and with the right support, people can get really comfortable with their technology and get excited actually about, the window that it opens to the world.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those outcomes, because you're right. I mean, I think first of all, I like to say that a lot of the people we're seeing, at least at United Church Homes who we serve, may have been people that have retired in let's say the late 2000s and what was around in the late 2000s, the internet, smartphones, things like that. So these are not, people aren't just naive about technology in general, but the Pew study is really, really interesting because I don't know what happens, as we get older. I mean, I know that for myself, new things come at me. They come at us faster. People like to slow down. By the way, hello to my mother, who's apparently my biggest fan on this podcast, who told me when I visited her last week, can you please slow down your speech? So even mom saying, Mike, you talk too fast. So that's the thing. But that's the thing. It all kind of comes to us so quickly. But, why is it so important, though, to make sure that older adults, have these connections, have this comfort with technology? I mean, what sort of benefits have you seen once people are connected and or are able to use these things?
Well, we've seen tremendous benefits, and we've also seen the world changed. I was just with a neighbor of ours who's 92 years old, still actively working. He actually installed his own new air conditioner, which was amazing. We're like, don't lift that thing, but he measured everything and he installed it. And it happened to be the same one that I recently bought. And it comes with an app. So you can, download the app and turn your air conditioner on or off or adjust the temperature from, anywhere in the world. And so here was this very smart, sophisticated man still working. But, I had to help him download the app and show him how to turn his air conditioner off and on. And so I think that the world is really changing, whether it's, medical telehealth visits or accessing your medical records, paying your bills online, cars. We had another neighbor also in her late 80s who just bought a new car, and she's like, it's driving me crazy. I don't know how to turn the air conditioner off and on. There's no AC button anymore. You have to go to the menu and use the mouse. And so I think that all of this is saying that technology is here to stay, and it's trying to make people's lives better and better and easier. But there is a barrier because you have to learn and you have to download and you have to remember another password. And so I think that I know that we've seen tremendous benefits of being able to use technology to improve health outcomes, to improve lives, to decrease social isolation. But at the same time, you've got to, it's not because people are stupid or even necessarily, not technically savvy, but so many of us need that help to just be able to understand new things.
And I'm guessing that you don't get the sense that the folks that are in charge of making new devices or technologies or so on, include people over the age of 75, just for example, in their user groups, when they're doing their design work, their UX design, things like that.
It's kind of unbelievable. That's one of the things. We have a ton of data. And, if anyone out there is listening, whether you're, Samsung, Apple, Microsoft, we've got tremendous data on, what people are calling us about. And you're absolutely right. I don't know if you've seen the new, Apple TV remote. It's very sleek, but I had to look around for, there's a voice button that you can push to say, hey, open this movie or play this song or whatever it is. And they put it on the side with a teeny tiny little, very slim thing. It barely looks like, the symbol's not even a microphone. And I had trouble finding it. And once I found it, explaining to a client, okay, it's there and you have to push the button. And I mean, it was literally almost impossible. And so they're trying to make things sleeker and sleeker, but at the same time, it's becoming more and more complicated to actually learn how to use.
And it is kind of, ableist in its view when you think about it, because, we're thinking about, our bodies evolving and, grip strength and even for people that may have, at any age may have functional limitations. That's why United Church Homes really does want to advocate for universal design work where, if you design for the extreme cases, the middle usually takes care of itself. And that's what sort of with anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that our team has learned, over the last few years is that older people's fingerprints, and if you're using touchpads, sometimes it literally doesn't work for some weird, well, not weird, but whatever physiological reason. Your grip, gets sort of rubbed off, right? So that your ability to use touch screens becomes more complicated, and so we never knew that before. But, now we keep telling people, touch this button or swipe here, and it's literally not working. It's almost like you have like water on your hands. If you've ever tried to use your phone, when your hands are a little bit wet. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to help people, overcome. But these are real, physiological challenges to using technology.
Wow. But I mean, once the gap is, I mean, I never knew that about fingerprints grip. I mean, that's fascinating. And we sort of get into this idea of digital equity. I just want to, just mention that, when we're recording now in August of 2023, we're at the cusp of a lot of the money that the Jobs and Infrastructure Act is putting into the economy is going to be made available. And the vast majority of that is going to, rural internet broadband connectivity and things like that. You don't have to drive to a McDonald's parking lot to do your homework anymore. But there is money carved aside for digital equity programs. We know that their term elderly, residents in affordable housing, those are all groups that could benefit. And I know that from the studies that we've seen, when people do have access to digital connectivity, there are benefits in terms of the social connections. But interestingly, the studies have shown an improvement in self-care activity, which is so important for positive lifestyle and positive health outcomes. So, I mean, the work that you're doing to foster that use of tech is so important. But to bring that to life, I mean, let me just maybe put a use case to you. Okay, let's say that I would like to give a gift of a new iPhone or something like that to my dad. How should I think about? And I know everybody is different, but in general, like how would you support somebody in just maybe just discovering something like this for the very first time and just really feeling good about diving in and using it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we do a lot of work with people using new devices for the first time, a lot of smartphones, a lot of tablets. So, we usually send a how-to guide. So we have sort of proprietary how-to guides that are easy to read, larger font, very simple step-by-step instructions with pictures. And, we'll usually send that in advance so they can print that out or follow along. And, the first thing that we'll do is like show them where the on-off switch is and where the volume button is, so they're very, very simple things that, you kind of assume people know, but, very often, especially with the iPhone, half the time I forget how to turn it off and on. You've got to push both buttons. You've got to hold it down. I push the wrong button, is it the top one, the bottom one? So, that's step number one is learn how to turn the thing off, learn where the volume button is. Next step is what do you like to do? Do you like to play cards? Do you like to, have video chats, or would you like to have video chats with your family? Do you take photos? Let's find some things that are going to excite you that you may not know you can do with your technology, whether that's, playing bridge with friends or Scrabble or backgammon or whatever games you like to play with friends who may not be living in the same area or family members. There are ways to kind of get people excited and engaged. And then the other thing is adjust for any accessibility needs. So I mentioned, my dad with the hearing aids, connect hearing aids if you need that, adjust the font size or the screen contrast if you need that, and really make sure that it's accessible. And so, those are really the first few things that I would do. And then, the other thing is, if you ask an older adult or really anyone, do you need, an iPad or a tablet? The answer is, no. Why do I need that? I've lived, 80 something years without it. I don't need it. But if you say, would you like to play cards with your best friend who lives in another state? Or would you like to, see your granddaughter's graduation that you can't physically get to? If you can come up with a purpose that technology is good for, then it opens up a window to being able to see the benefits of using it.
Well, context really matters, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess also quick wins. If you, I mean, I know that I'm more likely to use something if it just offers me an immediate benefit and it's something that's really meaningful to me.
Yeah, no, that's right. And then, the other thing is make sure that there's support. So, they may be embarrassed to call you or to call their grandchildren. And so being able, that is one of the benefits of Candoo or, a service like that, is that, if they feel like there's a number they can call, there's someone who they can reach out to when they hit a wall, then they're not embarrassed. Because what ends up happening a lot is, a kid will give a device to the family member and then that thing will sit in a box, for forever sometimes, because they don't feel like they have the strength or the support to be able to really figure it out.
So, there's technologies, I guess in the world of technology, there's technologies that are very popular. Alexa, Apple Watches, you've got obviously, tablets, computer, anything you can think about. And then there is this world of technology that seems like it's more dedicated for seniors, senior robots or senior companion. have you seen those? Where do you think that lands with older people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some really innovative, amazing thing. Robots, pets, grandpads, devices that are very simple, IN2L. I mean, we are supportive of anything that improves people's lives. But I will say that typically those kind of devices or, technologies are designed for people with cognitive disabilities, cognitive decline. And so for the average person, the average older person, we really see that they like to use or prefer to use their own devices. So they prefer to use a tablet or a phone or a computer and then put an app or something on that to be able to improve, their experiences. But they don't want to have two or three devices. And I mean, I just had this conversation with someone where they need to monitor, their to check for AFib and monitor their heart rate. And so the question was, do we get an Apple Watch or do we get this newfangled device that will measure it, but you've got to stick your fingers in it, you've got to remember to charge it, it's another device. And so where Apple is really winning in a lot of these cases is it's a one shop, one size fits all that does a lot of different things. And so it may not be perfect, but you don't have to remember to charge something else or, take something else out or have something sit on your counter. And so that's really what we're seeing is, of course, if you need a, remote patient monitoring device that's just for measuring your blood pressure or doing all that, if your doctor says you need it, you need it. But if you can have an app that is off of your phone or your tablet, there's a better likelihood that you're going to use it. And remember to keep it charged.
That's really good feedback. I just what I've been thinking about is, you have maybe specialty devices. They're good for a specific purpose, but it may be sort of you're not going to have the broad-based appeal. It's sort of more of a closed circle than other things. And then I'm just thinking about, man, everything is just getting so fragmented these days. We're just yearning for just a common platform. I mean, whether it be social media, now we have Threads, we with Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon and all these other sorts of things that may or may not work out. And then just with streaming services, I've got Apple, I've got Hulu, you've got Roku, you've got all of these different things for different shows. I mean, I think everyone's feeling it, so it seems like a universal, not just people that might be older, right?
No, that's right. And the streaming services are a great example. I have started watching more and more on my iPad, even more than my television, because by the time I have, my three remotes lined up and I turn on the TV and I turn off the cable and I switch the source and I turn on the Apple TV. And to your point, I've completely forgotten, what if it's on Hulu or Apple TV or Netflix and then, it takes too long. It's much easier to go to my iPad and just, push one button at this point. So I think you're right that, there's so many options, which is great, but streamlining is really critical. Unless, of course, and I will say a huge caveat, if someone has, cognitive decline or some kind of, limitation, there are wonderful, wonderful hardware. And, we'll talk about hardware because the software can really go on anything. But if you need to have a standalone device like a GrandPad or, like something that is going to, monitor something very specific, then 100%, we're all in favor of that.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is just, I can see into my own future where, and God willing, I'm going to be able to, live into my 80s and 90s. But I can just see that there's going to be, I think this is just going to be universal. There's going to be something in the future that comes out. There's going to be something in the future. I may be disassociated from, what I use technology for because I'm in a different stage in my life. Maybe something where it doesn't matter as much, but new things come up all the time, and I just have to, and as new things come up, there's also benefits and there's huge dangers. You open yourself up to a whole bunch of, every new technology means a whole new bunch of scams. And just for listeners, I'll encourage folks to listen to a previous podcast with Cameron Huddleston. Careful, we talk about scams and fraud. But that certainly must be part of your work, Liz. So it's almost like there's this concept of always trying to be a little bit savvy around technology. What are some good practices as we sort of encounter these new things in general to kind of be savvy, to be purposeful, to be excited, but also careful at the same time?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's a really important point. So safety and security is our number one concern. I mean, from our perspective, all of our tech concierges are US based, they're background checked, they're reference checked. We record calls for quality control. We can go back, if there's ever, God forbid, an issue. That's number one. Number two is we have really great, I think great, and we're getting great feedback on classes on staying safe online. So we do these really fun interactive games, which I should have brought to test you because I've gotten a few wrong, where you'll see an email and say, is this real or is this a scam? And you have to really dig in to understand. You have to right click and see that this is not whether it's staples.com is not really staples.com, it's staples.xyz.com. And so there are really important things to look for to make sure that you're not being scammed. I mean, we just got a call over the weekend from a client that said, oh my God, I just got malware on my computer. What do we do? So we have the safety and prevention piece of it. And then we also are able to help people when they unfortunately do click on the wrong thing, or, they get the phone call from someone saying, oh, we're Microsoft, you need to let us into your device. So we try to do preventive and prophylactic work. And then we also are there to clean things up, but it's becoming for sure more and more of an issue.
Yeah. Now that we're getting into more AI-enabled chat systems and things like that, the ability to connect with people at scale and to connect more inexpensively and all that is concerning. And but I would guess maybe there's a bit of a through line here with technologies. It's more about how the interaction makes you feel, right? I mean, if suddenly you feel scared, if something makes you feel like you have to do something right away, if something is maybe too good to be, if you get excited about something, I mean, if things are just kind of just out of the ordinary, I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of scams that play on your just day to day, but I know that, that's often pretty telling, right? As if just something just makes you feel like you have to act urgently on something.
Yeah, absolutely. And the phone call where where the IRS or, your grandson, I mean, those are kind of old time scams that people are still reacting to. The flip side is like we have a partnership with a wonderful health plan in New York, called Health First. And so we do outreach calls to say, hey, we're a partner of Health First. You can get free tech support and training if you're a Health First member. And that word free, I've done a few calls myself to test things out. And I had one guy say, it's free, that's too good to be true. And he hung up on me, which is actually right.
That's
and
good.
we've in fact changed our script to say, I tell our team, don't ever say free, because that is a trigger word, and so it's good. He was trained too well because he actually didn't take the service that would have been beneficial to him. But it is a good reminder that if someone calls you and says, oh, you're getting something for free, call us or let us into your computer, you really should not typically be doing that.
Well, but it's also good to know that health providers, health plans are starting to see the advantages of technology training, for their members. And I'm guessing that the plan you mentioned is maybe also seeing this relation between increased digital literacy and improvement in health outcomes, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very important. And we've been, with some very innovative plans and hospital systems as well, who we're working with. And then you may have seen the news that came out in April around the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, CMS, which just came out with a new requirement, in fact, for all Medicare Advantage plans to offer digital health literacy training for all of their members. And so, that's been a very exciting recognition for us that the health plans and, particularly MA, are going to have to cover this, because it is a game changer for people to make sure that they have, the digital literacy training to get onto telemedicine visits, to research their healthcare, to communicate with their doctor, as well as just, generally, if we think about social determinants of health, social isolation is a big one. And so that's something that the plans are looking at, very, very closely.
Absolutely. Well, in every one of our podcasts, we like to end it with kind of asking our guests 3 questions about their own perspective on aging, and thanks for being open to that. But I think before we break, is there anything else, any other advice or tips or anything that you'd like to say about either if you're supporting somebody who maybe trying to build new digital skills, or are you yourself are seeking them out? What would be sort of the advice you always give?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're never too old to learn. First of all, I think you need to meet people where they are. And the other thing I didn't mention, but we take very seriously, is use non-technical jargon. Don't assume that if you say open a browser window and someone has no idea what a browser is. So you need to start with the very, very, very basics. And then, ultimately it is that people can learn and can get excited about their technology. And you said it right, small wins are really great. So if you can get someone to, send their first text or get their first email, or, do something where they can, search for an old friend online who they haven't seen in 50 years, those are really exciting things that then get the wheels going to, to want to do more. And we saw that with a client who had a Samsung watch, and she bought it for fall detection. And then, the minute we set up the fall detection, she's like, now what about sleep issues? And so she started, getting more and more excited about all the potential once she got over the initial hump.
That's awesome. Well, Liz, again, thanks for being a guest on our podcast. Oh, and real quick before we get into our ending questions, where can we find you in Candoo? Is it candoo.com, or how do you spell that?
Candoo, 2 O's, so can do, like you can do it, but with an extra O, candootech.com, CANDOOTECH.com. Our phone number is 646-758-6606. We still have real people in the US answering the phone if you want to call, and you can also always chat with us online, or you can drop an email if you're an enterprise, and we do work with health plans, with senior living communities, as well as directly with consumers. And you can reach us through just partners at candootech.com if you have a question.
That's awesome. Great. Okay, candootech.com. Great. Okay, our 3 questions. So question number 1. Liz, when you think about how you've aged, what do you think has changed about you or grown with you that you really like about yourself?
Well, it's been interesting, as I've been an entrepreneur for many, many years. And I think that I've gained the confidence, and I've gained an attitude of, I don't care so much about what other people think. So, obviously I want people to like me and like my businesses, but I think there's a sense of not being as worried about pleasing everyone, and sort of knowing, trusting your instinct and trusting your gut.
That's awesome. And I think I said this on another podcast guest expressed something along those lines, but I think it was something, I remember something that I think it was like Ann Landers or somebody said about, when you're in your 20s, you're really concerned about what other people think of you. When you're in your 40s, you don't care about what other people think of you. And then when you get to your 60s, you realize they weren't even thinking about you at all.
That's really, I love that. That's absolutely true. And the other thing I will say is the world is very small. So be very careful, treat people with respect and dignity, treat people the way you would like to be treated, because you never know. I was just with someone over the weekend, and someone came up to her and said, we were on jury duty together 10 years ago. And she was like, what? I don't remember. But, so people pop up in all different areas of your life, and you want to make sure that, that you're not doing something that's going to come back to haunt you.
That's so important. Yeah. And the platinum rule, treat others as they would like to be treated. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So question number 2. So, what has surprised you most about yourself as you've aged?
I would say, kind of again on similar lines, that as much as every once in a while I think, well, maybe I'm not an entrepreneur, maybe I should go the corporate route. This is, it's such a hard, tough road, right? Every business you start, there's ups and downs, and there's great moments, and then there's, and I would say that I've come to realize that at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, and I love starting things. I love that energy and excitement of, having that blank piece of paper and figuring it all out, and then seeing the results and building a team. And that's been exciting to me. And ultimately that's what I love.
Wonderful. That is so great. And lastly, question number 3, is there someone that you've met or someone that's been in your life that has really set a good example for you in aging? someone that has inspired you to what we call, age with abundance?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say my mom and her friends. My mother is going to be 88 next week. She would probably not want to have that publicized too much, but I keep telling her she should be proud of it. She's still working. She's a radio broadcaster, and she's still on the air, and she's now podcasting herself and doing all sorts of events and everything. And she just has an incredible energy, and she's surrounded by people who are still working. I mentioned our 92-year-old neighbor who's still working and actively traveling, and there's a whole group of people who are, we were just talking this weekend, I would call them super agers, where they're in their late 80s, early 90s, still working, still traveling, still extremely vibrant, contributing to society, but also really enjoying their life. And so I do think people age, at all different levels. And we work a lot with senior living, and there are people that need that extra support, but there are people that are really inspirational, where they have more energy, frankly, than I do. And they're really an inspiration to me.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Oh, and would it be okay to give a plug for your mom's podcast?
Sure. Well, it's Joan Hamburg. She's on WABC radio in New York. So it's 770 WABC. And she's on, you can find her on podcast at Joan Hamburg, or through the ABC. I think it's WABCNewYork.com.
That's awesome. Well, Liz, Thank you so much for answering this question. Thank you so much for just a great and very informative session here on our podcast. Thank you for giving your time, your advice. And thank you to our listeners for listening to this episode of The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. And we want to hear from you. What is your relationship with technology like? What challenges have you experienced when acclimating to technology or using the technology? And what subjects do you suggest for future episodes of this show? Please send your thoughts at abundantagingpodcast.com. You can also give us feedback when you visit the Ruth Frost Parker Center website at unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. And I mentioned our annual symposium that happens in October. Our 2023 symposium is around ending ageism. And Liz, again, tell us again where we can find you.
You can reach me at partners@candootech.com, CANDOO tech.com, and I would be delighted to speak to any of you. And thank you, Mike. It's been great. I really appreciate this opportunity to continue to spread the word. And as we like to say, you can do it and we can help. So we really believe that with the right training and support, anyone can learn how to use their technology.
That is wonderful. You can do it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.